What's up, guys? We continue to try to turn this thing around. There's still a long way to go. It's probably going to take into the baseball season for me to recoup everything, but nice 2-0 night last night. We had the cover with the Toronto Raptors. It did get to a point where they were down 10 a couple of times late. I don't know if they were ever losing by 11, but they wound up covering. And then we had a nice, easy win, basically a wire-to-wire outright win on UC Davis. So that worked out pretty well. Nice one there. Moving on to today, it's a bit of a smaller slate. I mean, these college basketball, we still have about half of the slate as regular season, maybe less at this point. And you got a lot of the tournaments going on. Some craziness in the tournaments so far. Stetson remained alive to make the conference tournament final in the A-Sun last night. It was looking pretty bad for them. They were down double digits against Jacksonville pretty late in the game and wound up still being able to do it. Jacksonville almost pulled off back-to-back upsets. That would have been pretty crazy. But Stetson was able to do it. They're going to host the final against Austin Peay. So I would expect that Stetson probably will at least win that game outright, and they're going to be the favorite, but that's not until Sunday. So we'll have rest until then as well. I don't know. We'll see what happens with the Atlantic Sun. Is that what it is? American Sun? I don't even know what it is. Atlantic Sun. I don't even know. Whatever it is. The A-Sun. And then we had a couple of the Horizon teams got knocked out. Youngstown State, who I thought was the best team in the conference, they got eliminated yesterday. They were, I believe the 2 seed in the conference. They were the 2 or the 3, I think. They got wiped out on their own floor as a pretty substantial favorite. We're seeing all these favorites get knocked out, man. Lipscomb was like a 7.5-point favorite. I think Youngstown might have been almost like a 10-point favorite. What else do we have? Lipscomb in the A-Sun, and Eastern Kentucky was like an 8.5-point favorite, all on their home floors too. Youngstown last night, and then Wright State was like, what were they? I think they were like a 10.5-point favorite last night, and they lost. They were winning the game like 21-4 at the beginning of the game. It was like, well, Wright State's going to run away with this. Very good offensive team, Wright State. However, their defense is so bad they can't even maintain a huge lead, and they wound up losing to defending Horizon champs Northern Kentucky. So Northern Kentucky advanced there, and a lot of teams getting wiped out in the Horizon, which is kind of potentially clearing the path for Oakland, who is actually the 1 seed, but maybe not the best team in the conference. Probably still one of like the top 3 in the conference. It looks like Oakland is kind of the team to beat in the Horizon now at that point, with the way being cleared. Today, a couple interesting games. Mentioning more of the tournament play yesterday, the WCC tournament opener. I mean, Pacific is bad. Unfortunately for them, they had no wins in conference. They were 0-16. Now they're 0-17 in conference, but nobody expected them to get that absolutely demolished by Pepperdine, who's really not good at all. Pepperdine just completely wasted them in the opening round of the WCC tournament, which I think that was at Pepperdine's home court, or is the whole thing on a neutral at this point? I don't even know. I don't know if the opening round is on a neutral or not. No, yeah, everything was on a neutral. It was in Las Vegas. Jeez, if you're a Pacific, you travel to Las Vegas and you get wiped out in that manner. The game started out like 41-5 in favor of Pepperdine. Like whatever it was, 10 minutes into the game or something. It was 58-9 at halftime. And then at least Pacific was able to score a bit in the second half, because Pepperdine just obviously, I'm assuming they were putting in their backups and just way easing off the accelerator there. And they still wound up winning by over 50. So they were up 49 at halftime. They still won by more than that. I think they won by, 52, or maybe actually, I think they won by 59 or something like that. Even though they gave up more points, they still scored a bunch more points in the second half as well. Just really, really, really crazy what happened in that game. So that would put me going against Pepperdine today, although I'm not going to actually play it for a couple of reasons. Pepperdine continues to play in the WCC. So now the WCC opens up, where we have 2 matchups in that tournament tonight, I believe. Because Pepperdine played into that last spot, which I think they played into the 8. I think that was the 9 versus 8 that they won. And now they played into a game against, what are they playing against? Is San Diego the 5? I don't even know what they are. I guess they are the 5. Yeah. I guess Pepperdine is the 6. So Pepperdine, that was the 6 versus 9, I guess, between Pepperdine and Pacific. And then Loyola Marymount Portland tonight is the 7-8 matchup. And I don't know how this tournament works at all. But San Diego The issue I have with this, so I would lean a little bit to San Diego just because if you're Pepperdine, you just won by that much. You won by 59 points. How can you not be feeling a little bit high on yourselves? The only problem with it is that it is still a tournament. So obviously there is still reason to be motivated here because you want to advance in the tournament. The other issue I have is that Pepperdine already has the momentum now, and they really didn't have to put up that much of an effort. They were able to like rest everybody in the second half. So they have the momentum, nice confidence builder. So they've already played that opening game in the tournament, whereas San Diego has not played a game in this tournament yet. So they might start with a little bit of nervousness there, trying to get some conference tournament play under their belt, whereas Pepperdine already has it. And the other issue I have with it is that San Diego is the team that looks better because they have the significantly better record with the winning overall record, whereas Pepperdine's is a losing overall record. And San Diego also has the better record in conference. But then you look at it, and San Diego's only like a 2.5 point favorite or whatever in this game. So that gives me all of that gives me a little bit of hesitation. Although in a normal situation, I would say, yeah, you got to go against Pepperdine here because of what they did yesterday, but I can't quite get there with that one. Pepperdine is the favorite. They're actually up from 2.5 to 3, so they're actually the better team despite having the worst record. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry, I got that one wrong. For some reason, I thought San Diego was a slightly better team. Pepperdine is actually the better team and moving up. So, yeah, I just would not want to do it just because it's a situation where you have the team with the worst looking record is actually favored, but coming off such a ridiculous 59-point win, obviously I do not want to play on them. I would still kind of lean against them a little bit. We got a lot of other tournament play today, man. It's just too much to break down all of it. Missouri Valley's playing today. Big South is playing today. A lot of games in those. Colonial, or now the Coastal. Give me a break. This PC bullshit. It's now the Coastal. The Colonial is starting tonight with their worst teams playing whatever. And then the Southern Conference also has their opening round with some of their worst teams playing in that one. So whatever. And then the Summit actually has an opening round game today as well with a couple of their bottom teams in it. Oral Roberts has fallen off. They don't have Connor Vanover anymore, the 7-5 center or whatever. So Oral Roberts, not that team that was making ridiculous tournament runs as a 15 seed or almost being undefeated last year or whatever it was. I think they were undefeated in the Summit League last year or whatever. And obviously they made the tournament and lost to Duke in the first round last year, but whatever. Moving to the rest of the college slate. I mean, I had my eye on a couple of games here. I almost pulled the trigger to go against Eastern Michigan, but I kind of have maybe one or two issues with that. Eastern Michigan is coming off a ridiculous upset, man. They just upset Akron on the road. Akron is the top team in the MAC, and they're still fighting for the 1 seed against Toledo in the MAC, which is going to come down to today, I believe, to decide which one of those teams actually gets the 1, because they're both playing today, and they have their record is the same right now. That was a ridiculous win for Eastern Michigan, who's one of the worst teams in the MAC. They went into Akron as 21-point underdogs or something like that, 21.5, and won the game outright. Akron, I mean, they do play a pretty slow defensive game, which kind of opens them up to not being able to win in a lot of blowouts, but not even being able to beat Eastern Michigan is kind of crazy, especially when they still have reason to show up and play, and because they're fighting for the 1 seed in the MAC. That's crazy. And now Eastern Michigan's coming out of that, and they have to go to Central Michigan. And Central Michigan has their senior night tonight, but the issue is Central Michigan, they're up from 10 to 10.5, so it looks like there is some movement pushing them up a little bit. So I would only lay the points with Central Michigan here. It is their senior night, and Eastern Michigan's just coming off their win of the season, man. That was just a giant win. They were able to beat Akron. That's going to be their win of the season. But the thing is that even though this is Central Michigan's senior night, they're playing a bad team in Eastern Michigan. They're playing a team they already beat at Eastern Michigan by double digits. So there is a little bit of that road reversal angle there. So actually, maybe there are like 3 reasons why I don't quite want Central Michigan here, because the power ratings have both of these teams pretty bad, and both of these teams actually better record-wise than what they actually are. KenPom has both of these teams really high in luck, including Central Michigan being the number 2 team in luck, but Eastern Michigan like 17th or something. So he has both of these teams getting really lucky, which is kind of crazy. So neither of these teams as good as what their record indicates, but I believe his power ratings, I mean, he has these teams both pretty low. Eastern Michigan, he has in the bottom like 30 teams in all of D1, so really bad. Central Michigan a bit better than that, but he still, I think, only has this game somewhere around an 8-point favorite. So that also gives me a little bit of hesitation. But then the other thing is that Eastern Michigan, this is going to be their last game potentially, because I don't know if they're probably not going to be in any of these postseason tournaments, right? So they might still be motivated just because this is the last time they're going to play. Even though, they're coming off a ridiculous win as a 21.5-point underdog. But this is going to be their last game, and this is a Central Michigan team that beat them by double digits on their own floor. So, and it's kind of an in-state rival there, in-state rivalry between Eastern, Western, and Central Michigan. They all kind of like to step it up against each other. So there is reason for Eastern Michigan to show up here because their season is done after today. So they're going to want to play here because they're not going to make the MAC tournament. The MAC tournament, they actually leave the bottom 4 out of the 12 teams out of the tournament, which is going to lead into the game that I'm actually playing in the MAC today. So Eastern Michigan is one of those teams. They're eliminated. They're not going to be in the MAC tournament, so that's it. This is going to be their final game. So I think that is reason to be motivated. Whereas for Central Michigan, they're locked into their seed, I believe. They're locked into either they're in the 3 or the 4 spot in the MAC, whatever they are, they're locked into it. Even though it is their senior night, so yeah, they do have motivation here, but it's a little bit less than maybe you might think because they're already going to play in the MAC tournament and they're already locked into their seed in the MAC tournament. So they might not have quite the motivation that you want when you have a team that's laying so many points. And both of these teams really kind of play slower paces and aren't really that good at scoring. So I would hesitate to actually want to do it, even though, Eastern Michigan, on the surface, it looks like they're in a huge letdown spot for sure. So I still would lean to the Central Michigan side, but really there are some motivating factors going against that for sure. Dayton VCU was an interesting game. I mean, Dayton obviously didn't play well at VCU in a ridiculously low-scoring 49-47 loss, but it looks like this line's going down from 9-8 on Dayton. It's an interesting game. It's got implications in the A10 seeding, I'm pretty sure, although I would kind of lean to Dayton in that one. They've been playing awful basketball recently, but so I think people are going to look at that and maybe think that VCU already beat this team once. And it was so low scoring that it looks like it's going to be a competitive game. So VCU is really getting way too many points here. I think that might be like what the public sentiment might be in that game, but I don't really know because the line is dropping on Dayton. So it looks like maybe some of the betting market is coming in against Dayton in that one as well. I don't know. Dayton has definitely been falling off a bit, but they play a much slower pace than VCU, I believe. Even though, VCU actually never mind. VCU is known as being a fast team, but I've mentioned it before. VCU is actually a less fast team than they have been in the past, but they are a much worse offensive team than Dayton still. But Dayton still plays a slower tempo than VCU does, I believe. Dayton, one of the slowest in the entire country. So that kind of lends itself to some of their ugly play. But I guess that's why they had such a low-scoring game in the first game, because both of these teams play ridiculously slow. So never mind about that. But yeah, it's going to be weird. That one's going to be interesting. The game I'm actually on, I keep belaboring everything here. Don't have that much time here. Well, and I guess I'll mention just Boise and San Diego is the other interesting game today. The only other matchup tonight with a ranked team. So San Diego State against Boise. San Diego State did lose by 1 at Boise, and they're coming off kind of an embarrassing loss at UNLV. Not a great loss, although UNLV's been playing pretty well recently, and they actually jumped San Diego State in the standings. San Diego State, the Mountain West is crazy, man. San Diego State is 2 games back, and they're somehow sitting in 5th, even though most power ratings guys have them as still the best team in the conference. They're laying 7.5 up from 6.5. The 6.5 looks a lot more enticing than 7.5 here, but I would kind of expect San Diego State to play a good game here on senior night. They are a fairly senior laden team as well. Boise is coming off kind of a tough game, tough loss, even though they did fall kind of way behind in the second half against Nevada. I mean, that's kind of a tough game. That was their senior night. I don't know what Boise is quite going to have left in the tank here. I think the motivation might be more on the San Diego State side in that one. Boise is up. I mean, they do have motivation as far as maintaining their seeding. They're up in the 3rd spot in the Mountain West right now, which is crazy. Boise is less secure in their tournament bid than San Diego State is, although I think it's pretty definitive both of these teams are going to get in, kind of regardless of what happens in tonight's game at this point. So unless one of these teams, unless Boise like really chokes in the Mountain West tournament, I think you're going to see both of these teams in the tournament anyway. But I kind of lean to the San Diego State side slightly, and then it's just home court is just really crazy in the Mountain West. I think it's one of the stronger home court conferences. Although, as I mentioned, I think Conference USA actually has the best, which is kind of crazy. And then Western Illinois, Little Rock interests me a little bit, where I kind of lean to taking the points with Western Illinois. This is in the Ohio Valley tournament, which is also going on tonight. So I believe in the Ohio Valley are actually already down to the top 4 teams now at this point. Is this the semifinals now? I think it might be. Yeah, it is. So the top 4 seeds are all still alive in the OVC, and they're all playing each other now. So now we have kind of odd that it looks like we have, what is this? This is actually, the seeding might be different than what the standings are, because the standings make it look like the 1 and 2 are playing each other and the 3 and 4, but I don't think so. I think even though Moorhead is actually in the top spot in the standings right now, I think that's including the conference tournament play at this point, the ESPN standings here, because Moorhead, even though I think they're the best team in the conference, they've entered the tournament as the 3 seed in this conference, which is kind of crazy, because I think they're the best team in the conference, and we'll see what happens. They have to play against UT Martin tonight, although I think all of this is on a neutral site. It's in Evansville, Indiana, so no home court advantage there. So Moorhead, they are the better team. I mean, they're like probably a several point favorite. They're 7.5. So I would expect Moorhead to probably be able to win the game and get some revenge actually against UT Martin, because UT Martin beat Moorhead, I believe, the last time they played them, at UT Martin. So I would kind of expect Moorhead to bounce back there. I still kind of expect them to win the OVC, although we'll see about that, because none of these teams are that strong, but Moorhead is the fairly significantly better team out of these 4, but all the top 4 teams are still alive. I think Little Rock might actually be the second best team in the conference over UT Martin, maybe power ratings wise. I would have to look, but in this Western Illinois Little Rock game, I believe that Little Rock, because I think they're the 1 seed in the tournament, so I think they have not played in the tournament yet. So that's why I would fade Little Rock. And to end the season, they just totally beat up on Tennessee Tech, even though Tennessee Tech is a bad team, one of the worst teams in the conference. Little Rock beat them almost by 40, by 38, which is just a ridiculous way to end your season. So it's like, that's the way they ended the season. And now they've gone on kind of an extended break because they've had the bye, like multiple round bye in this tournament. So I think they might be a little bit cold and maybe feeling a little bit high, but of course they're going to be motivated because it's the tournament. But I don't know if Little Rock's going to start out maybe with some of those like opening like jitters a little bit, because they haven't played yet in this tournament. They're playing a Western Illinois team that the last time they played them, they beat them on the road. I think Western Illinois is overrated, as KenPom will tell you. They are pretty high in KenPom's luck rating, so their record looks better than they actually are, but they're getting 4.5 points here, and they already played in this tournament. They played yesterday, last night, and they almost lost to Tennessee State in a game where they were, 2.5 point favorites, so they almost lost the game, so they suffered a little bit of a scare. Western Illinois shot really, really terribly in the game, especially from 3-point range. They dominated on the boards against Tennessee State, but they only shot 17.6 from 3, which probably is something you won't see again. That's very, very low as a 3-point shooting team. But because they were able to get out of there with that win, they have the momentum now in the tournament, whereas Little Rock doesn't have any momentum right now. They're having to come into this game cold off of a conference finale where they won by almost 40 points, and they already won at Western Illinois. So I lean to Western Illinois in that one, getting the 4.5 or whatever. It looks like the line has gone up from 4 to 4.5 and maybe going through the 4.5. So I'm not going to play that one either. All that being said, the one game I'm on in college basketball, this is taking way too long just to give out one play in college basketball. This line is moving up on Bowling Green from 4.5 through the 5 to the 5.5 range. I think you can get Ball State at 5.5 right now. I played Ball State one time this year, earlier this season, in a spot that I thought was good, and I won on the game. And I think that was before conference play even started, maybe. I don't even remember, but I'm 1-0 on Ball State, baby. Let's keep the undefeated record on Ball State games here. Let's have some balls. We have one ball already in the season. We need to get that second ball. Let's get the pair of balls here. The pair of wins. I'm done with the ball jokes. I think maybe not. But I don't know why this line is going up on Bowling Green, because there are a lot of aspects of this that put me on the Ball State side here against Bowling Green, even though it is Bowling Green's senior night. So there have to be some factors involved to make you want to go against a team on senior night, which I've done once this year, I think already. And I did win on whatever game that was, right? I can't remember what it was. It was a couple nights ago I did it. And I'm going to do it again here. Bowling Green, I don't like how this sets up for them, really, because I think Ball State has a lot more motivation in this game than Bowling Green does. Bowling Green, they're coming off a nice win over Western Michigan, so they were able to leap up in the standings. They were able to leap up above 3 teams in the standings, right? Because you got a bunch of teams at 9-8, 8-9, and the worst of those 4 teams is potentially not going to make the MAC tournament, because the bottom 4 teams don't make the tournament. So Western Michigan is, I believe, the lowest of those teams right now. So they're sitting on the brink of not making the tournament because they have the worst overall record by far. So Western Michigan, and they play Akron tonight. So Western Michigan, and that game actually starts an hour before this game. So I don't know if there's going to be scoreboard watching or not, but the good thing is the Western Michigan game won't be over yet, because Western Michigan's status actually kind of impacts Ball State's motivation in this game, I would say, a little bit. But I think Ball State has reason to be pretty motivated in this game, and Bowling Green may be questionable. So Bowling Green, that win over Western Michigan kind of vaulted them up in the MAC standings to the point where there's basically no way that they're going to wind up out of the MAC tournament entirely. I don't think it can happen at this point, even if they lose this game. So many different things would have to. I don't even know if it's actually mathematically possible at this point for them to not do it, because they would have to somehow fall behind Ball State, who they're playing tonight. But I don't think that's even possible, because they're 2 games ahead of Ball State. So I don't think, it's not possible. So I think Bowling Green, they're locked into at least a tournament berth, I believe, at this point. It's just a matter of where they're going to be seated, and I don't think it really matters, man. They can't get up into the top 4. Central Michigan's 2 games ahead of them, so Bowling Green cannot overtake Central Michigan. Central Michigan, as I mentioned, they're locked into their seed. They're actually locked into the 4 seed. I believe Ohio's locked into the 3, and Bowling Green, it looks like they're either going to be probably the 5 or the 6. We don't really know yet, but the difference between the 5 and the 6, I mean, I guess you would kind of want to remain the 5, I guess, just so you face Central Michigan instead of Ohio. So I think you would rather face Central Michigan in the tournament. But is that enough motivation, that plus senior night? I don't really know, because this Bowling Green team went into Ball State and already beat them by 9 earlier this season. So they already have the road game. So it sets up a road reversal revenge angle for Ball State here. So that's a little bit more motivation on the Ball State side, whereas I think the tournament seeding or whatever, I don't think it's that much of a motivation for Bowling Green. Senior night maybe is a little bit of motivation, but I think maybe it gets a little bit overvalued as well, a little bit overrated. They do have 4 seniors on it. Or no, they have more than 4. They have 6 seniors, I guess, on this team. So they do have a bunch of seniors. So they will want to play well, but it's going to be in the back of their minds that they did already beat this Ball State team on the road, and that's going to be in Ball State's mind as well. Ball State is coming off a win over Kent State, which basically kept Ball State alive. So the reason why I think there's motivation on the Ball State side here, and you want to play them in a spot like this, getting points, because they are getting points, is their MAC tournament life is on the line here. So if they want to make the MAC tournament, and I do think they do, they don't want to fall short on the MAC tournament. I think they want to get into that tournament and see what happens. So I think that is motivation. They're in the 4th to last spot in the conference right now, so they need to win tonight, and I think they also would need Western Michigan to lose. So I don't know if they're going to be scoreboard watching, because Western Michigan's hosting Akron, but it is possible that Western Michigan doesn't lose that game. I mean, they're going to be at home in a senior night game, but still they're playing Akron, and Akron needs to win as well if they want to maintain the 1 seed, because they're battling Toledo for the 1 seed. So that game, so Western Michigan's in a spot where they very well could lose the game, of course, because they're playing against Akron. So they very well could lose. So Ball State, if Ball State were to win this game and Western Michigan were to lose, Ball State, I believe, would be in the MAC tournament and Western Michigan would be out. So that is motivation for Ball State. And it is certainly possible that Western Michigan, even if Ball State glances up at the scoreboard during this game, it is possible they look up and see that Western Michigan is losing the game to Akron, especially because Akron's coming off that just ridiculously inexplicable loss to Eastern Michigan. I think Akron might be in a little bit of a pissed off mood and might play pretty well against Western Michigan. So Ball State, they might be looking at the scoreboard and think, we can get into the MAC tournament here, man. We need to win this game against Bowling Green. They know that Bowling Green already beat them in their house, so you get the road reversal revenge angle. I think all of that trumps senior night and Bowling Green playing for the the 4 seed instead of the 5, or the 5 seed instead of the 6 seed in the MAC tournament. And the MAC tournament also, I believe it's all neutral site. It's all in a neutral location, I believe, in the MAC tournament. So that I don't think matters either. I believe it all is. Maybe you could check me on that. Maybe I'm not entirely sure that that's the case. But all that being said, Ball State, we're getting a generous helping of points here. I think Kent State Palm. No, Ken Palm doesn't have Ball State that much worse than Bowling Green here. He has Ball State at 266th in the country. I believe he has them better defensively than Bowling Green. He does, actually. So we have Ball State, the better defense, getting points here. He does have Bowling Green as the faster tempo team over Ball State by about 70 ranking spots or so. But even still, he does not have Ball. He does not have Ball State being the better defense. Excuse me, he does not. Never mind. But excuse me on that one. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry. Oh man, I'm getting all distracted looking at this. But let's see. He has Ball State as the better offensive team, actually, and the slightly slower team. Oh man, I was misreading this whole thing. Yes. Excuse me. Yeah. So he has Bowling Green actually as somehow the worst of the two offensive teams, not by much. The better defensive team, although not by much, and the faster tempo team, although only by about 70 ranking spots. So yeah, a little bit, but not enough that I think it's going to completely change what's going to go on in this game here. But all that being said, I'm going to play Ball State, getting the points at 5.5. I like it. Their MAC tournament lives are on the line, and you might say that might mean that the pressure is on. I would say that a pressure spot like that wouldn't be good if you were laying points with the team, but if you're getting this many points and it's a road revenge angle as well, we'll be on it. We'll take Ball State, and then I'm skipping the NHL card again completely. It's a small NHL card. I've done well in the NHL, but you got to pick the spots. I just don't like what I'm seeing in the NHL here. And then moving over to the NBA, we got one play in the NBA here today. There are certain games where you look at it and you think maybe it sets up for something, but the one spot that I like the most here is to take the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we're going to do what I usually do, and we're going to fade recency, basically, which is what I always do. I usually look at what these teams did in their last game and go completely in the opposite direction, go against what they did in their last game. I've been on the Cleveland game. I think I've been on each of these teams a couple of times recently in different spots. And now this is a spot to fade Minnesota and to play Cleveland. It looks like it's flipped from the Cavs, a 1.5 point underdog, to a 1.5 point favorite. I was able to get them as a 1 point underdog. I think you might still be able to get them as an underdog, but if you can get them as a pick 'em or lay a 1 or something, I think it's still it's fine. When you're pretty much playing them just to win the game, or if you want to do money line, I guess I wouldn't mind that either. You can find a money line price that's right around -110, a pick 'em on the Cavs. That wouldn't be bad either. For some reason, it looks like the Cavs have 81% of the tickets and 50% of the cash right now. I don't see how that could possibly be the case at all. And, one thing to check does this mean Donovan Mitchell is coming back? That's the one thing that we don't know here, because he has been out, obviously. It looked like it was a tear of some kind. It looked like he was not going to be back at any point, but let me see here. Mitchell is out for at least the next 2 games. Oh, he has a bone bruise, but he got a PRP injection. This says this was on March 8th, so that's today. So he is not playing tonight. So that's crazy that Cleveland is still a 1 point favorite in this game, or it's moving towards them as the favorite. They are at home, but for some reason, 81% of the tickets, but only 50% of the cash on Cleveland. That doesn't really jive with me. That doesn't make sense as far as I don't see how Cleveland, without Donovan Mitchell, against Minnesota could be the public side here. I doubt that that's going to wind up being the case at all. And especially looking at what these teams have done recently, even though Cleveland, they beat Boston, but still, how could that be the case when Minnesota's obviously the team with the better record, too? They have one of the best records in basketball. But Minnesota, I don't like the spot that they're in. They just went into Indiana. They beat the Pacers yesterday, so they're on a back-to-back. This is a tough spot for Minnesota, man. They played a pretty brutal game against the Clippers, then turned around, beat the Trailblazers. So they didn't win by that much. That was a bad spot for them, sandwiched in kind of there. Bad spot against the Trailblazers, and they'd beaten the Trailblazers pretty badly twice in Portland. So the Trailblazers, they showed up. They were motivated in that one. Oh, the line is shifting because Towns looks like he's got a torn meniscus, so he's going to be out. So now both these teams have injuries. So does that mean there's an injured player theory getting involved on Minnesota. I don't know. I don't know if that's really going to affect this here. I'm going to be on the Cavs here. Despite Minnesota, maybe they'll step it up just in lieu of the injury there. But I think this is going to be a real tough spot for them, especially if they're down a man, because now they're on a back-to-back, and they're in the middle of a road trip. And now after this game, so back-to-back, 2 different road games, a little close geographically. And then after this, they have to go out to the West, and they have to face the Lakers and the Clippers, which are much bigger games because those are Western Conference games. And it's LeBron and it's the Clippers, man. And those are probably going to be bigger games than playing against an Eastern Conference team that is without their best player. So we'll see what happens there, even though, yeah, you might say Minnesota might step it up because Towns is out now, but I'm not sure about that. I mean, they played pretty well in their last game there against the Pacers. They're able to get a nice road win there. They have no time off. Their schedule is really, really not good. Not good for them. They had 2 days off before they went to Indiana, but they started on the road trip, played pretty well. But now they played on the 1st, 3rd, and 4th. So now they're playing in the last, 7 days. They're playing a 5th game in 7 days. Is that right? I think it is. That's crazy. Yeah, it looks like they're playing a 5th game. Yeah, in 8 days, I guess. Yeah, so a 5th in 8 days. The first 3 were at home, but still, that's kind of a brutal schedule. And then this is an ESPN game, but the Lakers game is also an ESPN game coming up. And then Cleveland, I think they're like in much more of a bounce back spot here. They have the huge win over Boston, and then I went against them. So they were playing a 3rd game in 4 days. So they're returning with travel between them. They're returning back home. They're also playing a 5th game in the last 8 days as well. But actually, they're playing, 5th. Yeah. Right, correct. Both of these teams are playing a 5th game in the last 8 days. They're doing it also in 3 different locations because they had multiple home games in there. But they just went to Atlanta and they lost pretty badly against Atlanta. But of course, that was the game I was on Atlanta because Cleveland was coming off the huge win over Boston. So now I think it's going to be a spot where they bounce back again. Cleveland, they're in a much better bounce back spot. They played pretty poorly against Atlanta. Now they get Minnesota coming into their house. They don't really have much coming up. They got Brooklyn in their next game. They do have Phoenix after that, but I think they're going to be focused on Minnesota with the Minnesota T-Wolves coming into their house. Cleveland has the rest because they didn't play yesterday. Minnesota did. Minnesota's on a back-to-back. They played a pretty big effort game last night, so this might be the one of those 2 games where they wind up having less effort. Pacers also force you to run and kind of tire yourselves out too. So now running into a team that I think plays better defense than the Pacers do, I think that's going to be a problem. And then with maybe a look ahead to the LA teams up next, that's going to do it for me, man. So hopefully we get this stuff done. 2 plays today, Ball State plus 5.5 in college and Cleveland Cavs plus 1, or wherever you can get it at like close to the pick'em price. Peace out.